everything changed in a matter of seconds. I mean, literally seconds. The exact moment the 2026 NFL schedule was released, the terrifying reality of what lay ahead completely set in for Indianapolis. You know, for most franchises in this league, a brand new season is a clean slate, right? It's this beacon of hope, heavily fueled by the sheer optimism of your shiny new free agency additions, and of course, the fresh, untampered potential of the draft. It's that time of year for dreaming of Lombardi trophies and planning parade routes. But for others, well, it is a terrifying, unrelenting march into the unknown. Welcome back to NFL Nexus, your home for the most in-depth, cinematic dives into the gridiron. Before we unpack the absolutely terrifying stakes facing the Indianapolis Colts this year, make sure you hit that subscribe button, like this explainer, and comment down below on what you think about this upcoming season. And please, if you love what we do here, support the channel by becoming a channel member. Your direct support is exactly what lets us keep producing these premium, deep dive explainers week after week. Because what we are looking at today is not just a list of opponents on a calendar, not even close. It is a defining and potentially destructive moment in franchise history.
So, here is the question we all really need to ask. Can the Colts survive 2026? Just let that heavy question hang in the air for a second. Because listen, this isn't about simply making the playoffs or scraping by with a cute little winning record. No, this is about institutional survival. General Manager Chris Ballard and head coach Shane Steichen are staring down the barrel of a season that will test the absolute limits of their entire foundational philosophies. For years, Ballard has operated with this methodical, highly patient draft and develop mindset. He banks heavily on roster continuity and growing his own guys. But right now, that extreme patience is colliding head-on with Shane Steichen's aggressively fast, high-octane offensive schematics, a system that demands immediate, absolutely flawless execution. Every single week on this upcoming schedule presents a lethal trap, a media-driven narrative, a ghost from the franchise's past, or a terrifying vision of the future. The margin for error? Let me be clear, it is absolutely zero.
For the Indianapolis Colts, 2026 isn't just a season, it's a gauntlet. Honestly, that is the only way to accurately describe what lies ahead. This is basically a cinematic documentary playing out right there on the turf, and you can feel that the entire organization feels the immense, crushing weight of it. The front office knows it, the coaching staff knows it, and the subtle yet incredibly dramatic shifts we've seen this offseason absolutely prove that this regime has its back firmly pressed against the wall. Think about it. We are talking about highly uncharacteristic roster maneuvers from Chris Ballard, severing ties with foundational veteran leaders, completely overhauling the defensive secondary with massive win-now investments, and totally pivoting away from traditional conservative play calling. Guys, these aren't the actions of a comfortable regime, not at all. These are the frantic, highly calculated preparations of a front office that looks at the horizon and knows a devastating storm is coming.
Let's move into Section 1, the 2026 Road Gauntlet.
The internal pressure brewing inside the building in Indianapolis right now is palpable. You can almost cut it with a knife. Carly Gordon, the Colts CEO and owner, stated it as plainly as you possibly can in her postseason press conference. She said, "The sense of urgency has never been higher." Let those words really sink in for a minute. The reality of NFL ownership is that patience, no matter how much they preach it, eventually evaporates. Revenue, fan expectations, and the fleeting nature of championship windows mean that sitting around and waiting is just no longer a viable strategy in today's NFL. The ownership is demanding results right now. This impossible schedule isn't just a hurdle for the team, it is a suffocating, non-negotiable timeline. This regime must completely validate its process immediately, or they are going to face the incredibly harsh, inevitable consequences of the NFL coaching carousel. It's perform or pack your bags.
And the relentless timeline we're talking about, it begins almost immediately. Look at this. Week 2, traveling to the absolute deafening roar of the Kansas City Chiefs. Week 5, marching straight into the hostile, historically unforgiving Steel City against the Pittsburgh Steelers. Week 8, facing a baffling decade-long curse down in the sticky humidity of the Jacksonville Jaguars. And then, Week 14, coming off a desperate bye week and walking straight into the sheer, unadulterated hostility of the Philadelphia Eagles. To put that into perspective, we are talking about thousands upon thousands of travel miles, zigzagging across contrasting climates, hostile time zones, and walking into the most notoriously unforgiving stadiums in professional football. The sheer physical wear and tear of this travel schedule alone is honestly enough to break a roster right in half. One single misstep, one single failure to adjust physically or mentally on the road, and this entire season could be completely over before the leaves even finish falling off the trees.
Which brings us to Section 2, Surviving Arrowhead and Jacksonville.
Okay, so let's break down the micro details of Week 2 at Arrowhead Stadium because they are staggering. Remember what happened last year? The Colts went into that exact building and did the absolute impossible. They actually kept the Chiefs' high-flying offense perfectly trapped in a bottle. They completely forced Patrick Mahomes out of his rhythm, forcing an interception and, amazingly, holding him to 0 passing touchdowns. 0. Now you know Patrick Mahomes. He is a generational competitor. He has had this game violently circled on his calendar for months. He is seeking pure, unadulterated revenge. But the Colts do have a proven counter-weapon. Recall the sheer terrifying dominance of edge rusher Laiatu Latu in that 2025 matchup. Latu didn't just win with raw speed. He systematically broke down the Chiefs' tackles with violent hand usage and unparalleled bend around the edge. He secured half a sack, 5 total tackles, a quarterback hit, a pass breakup, and then, the crown jewel, by perfectly reading Mahomes' eyes off a simulated pressure, he snagged a phenomenal interception. I mean, few humans walking this earth can claim they've successfully baited and picked off Patrick Mahomes. Laiatu Latu is one of them. And going into this game, the Colts' new secondary anchors, Sauce Gardner and Charvarius Ward, will be absolutely vital in executing complex man-match coverages. They have to keep Mahomes guessing, essentially buying Latu the crucial milliseconds he needs to apply that exact same suffocating pressure.
And then, there is the Jacksonville curse. Just hearing those words sends absolute shivers down the spine of anyone remotely associated with Indianapolis. We are talking about an over-decade-long curse of trying and spectacularly failing to win a football game on the road against the Jaguars. It is a place of absolute, inexplicable dread for this team. Whether it's the suffocating Florida heat, the strange bounces of the football, or just bizarre tactical collapses, it never goes right. It is a stadium so uniquely cursed for this specific franchise that just last year, Colts quarterback Daniel Jones suffered a devastating non-contact Achilles tear right there on the turf at Everbank Stadium. It literally feels like a physical manifestation of bad luck. It's a genuine house of horrors that violently defies all logical analysis and historical statistics. No matter how good the Colts are or how bad the Jags are, the curse is always looming.
But let's look at the actual tactical mismatch that makes Jacksonville so incredibly dangerous. It's a relentless chess match of speed versus sheer force. You have Trevor Lawrence's highly efficient, quick-strike offense going up against the Colts' bruising pass rush. Throughout the years, Lawrence has essentially had his way with this Indianapolis defense, and the micromechanics of how he does it are terrifying. Lawrence is consistently getting the ball completely out of his hands in under 2.4 seconds. By doing this, he completely and totally neutralizes the pass rush. So, Latu, DeForest Buckner, and the rest of that defensive line must create immediate game-wrecking pressure right off the snap. But here's the catch. If they are even a fraction of a second late, Lawrence will surgically carve them up. He does this by feeding these reliable underneath crossers to Jacoby Myers, which draws the linebackers down. Once the second level bites on that, it violently opens up the deep vertical route trees for absolute burners like Brian Thomas Jr. and Parker Washington. It is a masterclass in offensive efficiency. The Colts absolutely have to disrupt the timing off the line of scrimmage, or they are going to fall victim to the curse once again.
Now, let's look at Section 3, the ghost of Aaron Rodgers. 2008. Let that number hang heavily in the air for a second. 2008. That was the absolute last time the Indianapolis Colts won a football game in Pittsburgh. I want you to really think about how incredibly long ago that was. Peyton Manning was still operating in his absolute untouchable prime. The original iPhone was barely a year old. Entire eras of football, different rule changes, totally different coaching philosophies, entire generations of players have come and gone since the Colts last tasted victory in that specific stadium. The sheer historical weight of that losing streak alone is enough to mentally crush a young team before they even step off the team bus. It is a massive looming shadow.
And then there is this staggering number right here, 19. For 19 consecutive seasons, the Pittsburgh Steelers were fiercely led by the steady, legendary, uncompromising hand of Mike Tomlin. But everything shifted this offseason. The Tomlin era is gone, and the Steelers are now led by veteran head coach Mike McCarthy. And guess who McCarthy immediately picked up the phone to reunite with? A 43-year-old, fiercely competitive, 4-time MVP who just signed a 1-year deal to run it all back in Pittsburgh, Aaron Rodgers. The quarterback who won his lone, career-defining Super Bowl with Mike McCarthy is back in his system. This reunion is incredibly dangerous, guys, because they share an unspoken, almost telepathic understanding of that West Coast scheme. They are looking to write one final, devastating chapter together, and unfortunately for Indianapolis, the Colts are standing right in their crosshairs. The historical efficiency of Aaron Rodgers against the Colts is nothing short of terrifying. In 6 career games against Indianapolis, Rodgers has operated like an absolute machine. Look at these numbers. He has 141 of 205 passing. That is a jaw-dropping 68.8% completion rate. He has racked up 1,416 passing yards, 13 passing touchdowns, and miraculously only 3 interceptions. He is a cold-blooded surgeon against this franchise's various defensive iterations. But the Colts do have a unique, deeply familiar counterweight to look back on. Last year, playing for Indianapolis, wide receiver Michael Pittman Jr. completely dominated the Pittsburgh defense. He hauled in 9 hard-fought receptions for 115 yards, giving us an up-to-date look at exactly what kind of imposing physical weapon he can be in this specific environment. But there is a devastating, almost theatrical twist to this whole scenario.
The ultimate betrayal. Yeah, Michael Pittman Jr. is no longer wearing the horseshoe. Forced to make an incredibly difficult roster decision between him and Alec Pierce for the future of the offense, the Colts traded their longtime key contributor to the Steelers earlier this offseason. Shane Steichen's deep ball-oriented offensive scheme demanded the over-the-top field-stretching speed of Pierce, making Pittman's high price tag as a possession receiver a tough salary cap casualty. So, picture the incredibly tense scene in Week 5. Michael Pittman Jr. lining up on the exact opposite side of the line of scrimmage. A highly familiar face, a beloved former captain, now completely transformed into a lethal, highly motivated weapon at the total disposal of Aaron Rodgers. The Colts are going to have to rely on their intimate, years-long understanding of Pittman's precise route-running habits and his physical tendencies to find any competitive edge they can. Because, make no mistake, this revenge game will undoubtedly be fueled by incredibly raw, deeply personal emotion.
All right, moving on to Section 4. The Philadelphia Eagles' threat.
This game in Week 14 will absolutely not be one with finesse, fancy scheming, or trickery. Throw all that out the window. It will be a violently exhausting, bruising, 60-minute battle in the trenches. On one side, you have the Eagles' massive offensive line, consistently paving massive run lanes for the explosive metrics of Saquon Barkley. And Barkley still possesses that league-leading breakaway speed and devastating lower body power. On the other side of the ball, Daniel Jones and the Colts offense will be staring down a brutalizing defensive front, uniquely spearheaded by the terrifying bull rush win rate of Jalen Carter. For the Colts to survive this hostile environment, defensive tackles DeForest Buckner and Grover Stewart must play the absolute, physically dominant games of their lives. They have to anchor the point of attack. They have to shed blocks immediately, and they must completely limit the physical, soul-crushing toll this Eagles team enforces. If they don't, they will be brutally run completely out of the building by the fourth quarter. It is that simple.
And while that brutal trench warfare is taking place, the secondary will be locked in a high-stakes, incredibly fast-paced game of chess on the outside. Eagles quarterback Jalen Hurts is orchestrating an offensive system that is completely stacked with elite talent at literally every single skill position. A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith are going to violently and repeatedly test the deep outer boundaries of the field. This means cornerbacks Charvarius Ward and Sauce Gardner have to operate with absolute, flawless technique all game long. Furthermore, the Eagles have added explosive rookie wideout Mekhi Lemon to the fold. Lemon possesses game-breaking 4.3 speed and incredibly sudden breaks out of his routes. He is going to apply immense, highly targeted pressure squarely onto Colts nickel cornerback Justin Wally, viciously testing Wally's hip fluidity in the slot. In this environment, against this specific personnel, the margin for a blown coverage is practically microscopic.
Let's look at Section 5, Enter the Defensive Mastermind. So, with this seemingly impossible gauntlet of opposing quarterbacks, you're probably asking yourself, how do the Colts systematically prevent a total, catastrophic collapse? Well, we have to dive into the unsung hero of this coaching staff, Chris Hewitt. He is the defensive passing game coordinator and secondary coach. This guy is a brilliant tactical mind who put in a grueling, largely uncredited 14-year grind behind the scenes with the Baltimore Ravens, which culminated in a highly respected associate head coach designation. His tireless work ethic and sheer schematic brilliance have not gone unnoticed by the highest levels of the sport. In fact, he is now one of only 16 coaching recipients selected to heavily participate in the NFL's highly exclusive revamped accelerator program in Orlando. And this program goes way beyond X's and O's. It actively grooms the brightest minds in advanced analytics, cap management, and executive leadership. The entire league is officially looking at Chris Hewitt as a future high-level head coach.
And the immediate, absolutely monumental impact he had upon arriving in Indianapolis is perfectly summed up by this one number, 15. In Hewitt's very first year working alongside defensive coordinator Lou Anarumo, the Colts defense violently forced a takeaway in a staggering 15 different football games last season. You guys, that level of ball-hawking consistency does not happen by accident. That is culture. That is the direct result of a coaching staff completely and totally transforming the aggressive mindset of a defensive backfield. Hewitt implemented incredibly complex post-snap safety rotations, heavily disguised simulated pressures, and he demanded hyper-aggressive punch-out drills in every single practice. He essentially fundamentally rewired how this secondary attacks the football while it is in the air, creating a unit that thrives on perfectly timed chaos.
Hewitt's tactical mastery is the exact, impenetrable armor the Colts desperately need to survive this 2026 gauntlet. Look at the stats. Under his direct command in 2025, the defensive backfield fundamentally suffocated elite passing attacks, holding opponents to an incredibly low 88.0 passer rating. That confidently ranked 10th overall in the entire National Football League. Furthermore, they aggressively snatched 14 total interceptions. When your schedule violently forces you to face Patrick Mahomes, Aaron Rodgers, Trevor Lawrence, and Jalen Hurts in hostile territory, you simply cannot just play passive bend but don't break defense. It won't work. You have to actively hunt the football. You have to take the ball away and flip the field for your offense. Chris Hewitt's brilliantly aggressive system is realistically the only thing that can systematically neutralize the incredible, terrifying firepower waiting for them on the road.
Finally, Section 6, the verdict on 2026.
So we have methodically examined the sheer, overwhelming weight of the upcoming schedule. We have stared down the terrifying, historical ghosts waiting in Arrowhead, Jacksonville, and Pittsburgh. And we have seen the undeniable, brilliant glimmer of tactical hope lying within Chris Hewitt's defensive mastery. These two unstoppable, opposing forces are now locked onto a direct, violent collision course. So I leave you with this. Will the gauntlet absolutely break them, or will it miraculously forge them? That is the ultimate lingering question that will undeniably define the trajectory of this historic franchise for the next entire decade. The physical toll, the mental exhaustion, the absolute lack of breathing room, there is simply no middle ground to be found here. Either Chris Ballard and Shane Steichen's carefully constructed roster will completely crumble under the unbearable, crushing weight of this brutal road schedule, or they will miraculously walk straight through the absolute fire and emerge on the other side as hardened, battle-tested, undeniable championship contenders. The tension is incredibly palpable. The stakes are absolute. Thank you for joining us here on NFL Nexus for this deep cinematic explainer. If you want to see exactly how this incredible, high-stakes story unfolds week by week, do not forget to subscribe to the channel, absolutely like this explainer, and comment your exact predictions down below. And remember, you can directly support the channel by becoming a channel member today. The 2020 season is rapidly approaching. The gauntlet awaits. We will see you next time.